really weird.
They're just giving you money. They just love you.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, can't say fairer than that. Anyway, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining us. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I'm just taking this off because Theo's asleep, and I just want to make sure I'm not too loud that he can hear me through the wall. That's what I'm doing right now.
Honestly, it's really funny. So you're in danger of waking him up, and I'm in danger of my 12-year-old hearing me talking nipples and
Oh, too soon. It's too soon
too
for him to
soon.
be discussing nipples and hearing about them
No,
and what
I know,
happens
and
to
he's
them
just
and what you do with them.
don't tell me about it. When I posted the fact that I was going to be talking to you the other day, I had so many people contact me saying, well, in fact, I put a poll up to say how many of you would even think about, seeing a doctor or something if you noticed a change in your boobs.
Yeah.
64% said, no, I wouldn't. And actually, that was me as well. And my boobs changed massively, and they were really lumpy and painful and dischargey and everything else. And it's really hard, isn't it, to know actually when do you go and see somebody and when you don't, which was why it's just so important that you're telling your story, because you're living proof that actually this does happen, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't the first thing I wanted to do, because I was breastfeeding my boy. He was 6 months old, and I guess for maybe 3 or 4 days, not long, I know, but I was definitely in denial that it was anything other than breast changes because I was breastfeeding. And you just think that that's because, I mean, your whole body, it's an onslaught of everything, physically, emotionally. When you
don't
give
recognize
birth,
yourself, do you?
No. Oh my God. I just was like, every day I woke up feeling like a bridge troll and just going, what has happened to every single part of my being? But the way I look, the way I feel, my outlook on everything, it was just crazy. And so to even find the time to allow the space, a small space in your mind, to think that anything could be wrong other than all of the other things like sleep deprivation and trying to keep the baby alive and all the rest of it. I just didn't want to even contemplate it, but I had to. And as I've mentioned before, I'm now the 5th person in my family to develop breast cancer, and we don't have the gene either, which is a separate thing.
I find that unbelievable. Like, don't you think that at some point they'll find another gene or something?
Well, yes, which is actually really important, and I'm glad that I'm able to talk about it, actually, because so there's an amazing, Prevent Breast Cancer is the charity that I'm a patron of, and
they're fab. I love them. Yeah.
My mum's a patron as well, actually.
Oh, really? And Sally Dinover is as well, who I've done some work with before.
Amazing. And they're just such a a lovely team of people, and every question you could even think of, and all the ones you don't think of in the moment because you're flustered, they've got an answer for, and it's just great. And if they don't, then they work on it to get you there feeling comfortable. But I've been speaking to one of the the genetics team there, and because we don't have the gene, there are 3 main ones that everybody knows about, which is BRCA1, BRCA2, and PALB2. They're I'd say sorry, I keep clearing my throat, I've been a little bit poorly.
Don't worry.
So for the past 10 years or so, I don't know, maybe even longer, there hasn't been a great deal of success in finding other genes, as everybody's always been talking about BRCA and BRCA and BRCA. But actually, in the last few months, I'd say 6 months or so, they've recognized that there are more genes, and combined, the faults combined can cause this high prevalence in families. And we're not the only family that have developed a large amount of breast cancer within the family without the gene. And so there are others, and so I will be tested for those, and then now we will be in the system, the family history clinic. And honestly, it's a weight off my shoulders that we don't have the other genes, because obviously the BRCA gene then causes problems with the ovaries, and you have to think about all of the implications of that. So we will be tested, and there are more, but I'm really glad that people can now know that, and they can get themselves checked for that, because it's really, really important for the men as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's as important for the men as well, isn't it? And so these were close family members, wasn't it? It was your mum. Is it your mum, your aunt, sister?
Yeah, so my mum, her sister, their auntie, their cousin, and me. So all in our, so I was 39, my mum was 41, her sister was 39, their auntie was 44. It's a lot, and it's all within that relatively young age bracket.
Under the screening age as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's, so, for me, that's a really big, that's quite, like, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. That's why it's so important that we're so aware of our own bodies and take ownership of what's going on. Because
absolutely, yeah, I was the same age. I was 39 as well, and really? So of course the only person that was going to find mine was myself. And you know, I wasn't going through the, you know, the hormonal changes that you were, having just had a baby. So perhaps for me it was a blessing almost for me, because I didn't have any family history, so I don't know that I would have had the foresight that you did to get it checked. So this is very recent for you, isn't it? This is only last year, is that right?
Yeah, I was diagnosed on the 13th of October and had my surgery on the 17th of December. So I'm 8 weeks post-op.
Gosh. Wow. And do they have any idea how long you had it for?
Well, I found the first lump in July.
Right.
A second lump developed a month after. Incidentally,
same
when
side?
they tested, yeah, all in the left breast. Incidentally, and you could see these lumps. They, you know, once my breast filled with milk, because I heard a little bit of what you were saying. It's like you're engorged. They're huge. It's ridiculous. It's like you've just had 12,000 babies.
Yeah.
Like,
and they hurt, don't they?
Yes, especially when you don't, like, if you're out and you're not in a position to just quickly feed, or you're not with the baby, you know, and you're just like, that's what I want to do with them.
I know.
And it can be really uncomfortable. And so I produced a lot of milk, thankfully. So I produced a lot of milk, and so they just would feel so much that the little lump would just protrude. You could just see it at the skin. You could visibly just see it. And I was so alarmed by that, because I've had lumps before and they've been benign. You know, they say the fibroadenomas, and don't worry about it, it's fine. But this just felt different. It felt like a little frozen pea, like a solid bean or something underneath the skin. And then incidentally, the other one felt a little bigger but a little softer. And they were probably like an inch apart, maybe. And I found the second lump whilst I was away filming. I was on a job. It was on my first job after having Theo. And I found it on set.
Wow.
And I was like,
how can you concentrate on work then?
I had just do what you've got to do. I had to just go and just put that there for now. And I actually did that, if I'm honest, the whole time. So I was there for 2 weeks. And
were you away as well?
Yeah, we were in Guadeloupe. It was the Death in Paradise. It was in the Caribbean.
Oh, Death in Paradise, yes.
And I was with my mum and my son, which is amazing that the show, you know, made it possible for me to take them.
Amazing.
Yeah, really lovely team. And so I was there in the day filming God knows how many, from God knows what time in the morning till God knows what time in the evening, then coming back and doing mummy duties. So I was exhausted, and I thought, you know what, it's probably, I just got to put it to the side. It is what it is. This is, you know, there's so much going on.
Did you tell your mum?
No. I didn't tell my mum until the day I had the biopsies, which was the 6th of October.
I completely get why. You just don't want to.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't want anybody to worry unnecessarily, because it could have been benign. It could have been breastfeeding, post-birth, whatever, just hormonal changes. And I didn't want to worry her. I didn't even tell my partner straight away. I actually told nobody initially. And I went for the checkup. Well, I actually had to get a third opinion eventually to be diagnosed, but I had 2 separate ultrasounds where they both said, you know, you're okay. Incidentally, and in their defense, the lumps themselves, they didn't find to be cancerous, which is where it got really interesting for me. Once they removed all of the tissue, because I had a double mastectomy, once they removed all the tissue, those lumps were almost part of a section. So I had DCIS, which is ductal carcinoma in situ, which is where the milk ducts of cancer cells are all within the milk ducts. So there's like a 7 centimeter mass of that. And the 2 lumps that they did the biopsies on, they could find no traces of cancer within those 2 lumps. They did a needle test in my armpit, again, no traces of cancer, but what they did find was this DCIS. This was back in October.
I'm so confused because
I was too.
But if they biopsy it and it comes back clear, why did they go on then to do a mastectomy?
So, because once they sent the tissue off, they found the DCIS. So it was separate things, and also because of the mammogram. So the results of the mammogram. So they did on the day. I'll go back and paint the full picture. On the day, which was the 6th of October, I had the physical examination, an ultrasound, a mammogram, a needle test in my armpit because they found an inflamed lymph node, and 2 biopsies in each lump. And then the following week, I went back, and throughout that period of time, they examined all of the data, including the tissue and the mammogram. And that's when they told me that the lumps themselves, they didn't find. But you have to remember, though, that when they do a mammogram, it's 2D, whereas your breast is 3D. So they're going down, you're in the mammogram, essentially, in the machine, and they're going down, and they're looking from different angles. There's always that chance they can just go just past when it's here, just past it. So from the biopsies and from those lumps, they didn't find any cancerous cells, but they're taking samples.
Right.
So and that's how it can sometimes, I guess, be missed in certain people. But thankfully, I had the DCIS. So that is what caused the mastectomy. The other one was preventative. And then once they removed all the tissue, that's when they found the small invasive cancer. So had I not had those lumps come up, I would not have had myself checked 3 times. They would not have found the DCIS, and then they would have not then tested the tissue to find the actual very small amounts, but there of invasive cancer.
And
so I feel very lucky.
And actually, what that's meant is that you've caught it very, very early.
Really early. So it's called micrometastases, where it has gotten to the lymph nodes. So it had travelled to 2 lymph nodes. They removed 7, and of those 7, 2 of them had the micrometastases, so like small clusters of cancer cells. And then they had to send the tissue off to the States because the type of breast cancer I had, which is in its full term called DCIS with microinvasion, only makes up 1% of all types of breast cancer.
Oh my God, really?
And typically my friends were like, you could just have normal breast cancer. Just like, you're so dramatic. And my partner said that as well, obviously in jest, but it cracked me up. But they sent that off, and there wasn't enough of the tissue of the cancerous cells because it's so small. It was ready to do all the damage, but they caught it in time. Essentially, we caught it in time, but there was such a small amount that they couldn't give me a definitive answer as to which type of treatment would be best. And they had to send it off to the States because it was such a rare type of breast cancer. So it's all been a lot. I mean, we're still kind of ongoing at the moment. I had my appointment with my oncologist on Wednesday, and thankfully, chemotherapy is off the cards. We don't have to go down that route, and I'm really, really grateful.
Really you must grateful. Be so chuffed about that.
Good. Especially with Theo being 1. It's just not, it's not, for anybody, but also with a
Well, it
1-year-old.
absolutely just floors you. And then
Yeah.
to have a baby as well at the same time. I've got several
Yeah.
friends that have done that, and it's just, I think it's impossible. I don't know, you know,
Well,
I
my
don't know
heart
how people
firmly
get
says
through
off
it.
to anyone that goes through it,
Mm,
with or without children. You know, whatever your
mm,
circumstance, it's
mm.
it's an assault to the body and all of your senses, and like in
Yeah,
every
it
single
is.
way possible. And to come out the other end, even with a smile on your face, is incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
It's incredibly inspiring actually to see so many. I've had so many messages, and it's been lovely having so much support, and it's just very humbling, if I'm honest,
Yeah,
seeing what people are
absolutely.
going through. And I feel lucky in a way because you're right, they did catch it very, very, very early.
Mm. So that was 8 weeks ago then that you had the
Mm.
double mastectomy. And,
Mastectomy.
and how are you recovering? Because, it's a big op, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
Feeling
they did a
okay?
reconstruction at the same time, which I'm really grateful for, because with me having the sickle cell, it was too dangerous to put me under twice. So for me to heal and then go back and then have the reconstruction,
Yeah, as I
I had to
read
have
about the
a,
sickle cell as well. So that
oh,
complicates things a little bit as well, I guess, doesn't it?
yeah. Well, again, I feel really fortunate. I've said before, maybe it's not the right word to use, but I do feel really, really lucky that I have such a great support network and team. And my hematologist has had my back all the way, and he made sure that I was safe in the situation because of the sickle cell. I had to have
Yeah.
a full body blood exchange 10 days prior to the surgery. So they took all of mine out, replaced it completely because it was too dangerous for me to go through the surgery with the sickle blood.
Right. Gosh.
That was a lot, but I got through it, and I was really, really, really grateful. Thank you, whoever it was that donated that
Donated that
blood.
blood. That's why it's so important that we
It really is.
donate blood, isn't it?
It
It's
really,
so
really is.
important.
People don't realize how much they can
People
help
don't
and
realize,
save
and
lives. And
yeah, and it's only when you hear stories like yours
mm,
where you just think, oh, why am I not doing that? Because it's really easy to give
it's
blood,
really
isn't
easy.
it?
And apparently, you get like cookies and sweets and stuff
I
when you go.
know. Tea and
If I
biscuits.
could, I really would. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had that 10 days before the surgery, and then the surgery itself actually was very um, a great success, really quick. They
Good.
managed to. I've got very minimal scarring. Well, obviously, it's through the whole base of my breast under both sides. I kept, so you obviously you'll know you have to make decisions about whether to keep the nipple, remove the nipple. If you do have reconstruction, do you have the implant above or below the muscle?
Yeah.
There's all of these millions of things going through your head. And I decided to keep the nipple and have the implant over the muscle, just because I don't have a very big frame and excess tissue. So it apparently with the muscle, and I saw pictures. Thankfully, friends were kind enough to send me photos that sometimes, not with everybody, but sometimes with the muscles, it can you can see the contraction of the muscle over the top.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that could still happen, but I went for the other option. So I've got the implants over the top of the muscles, which is
Yeah.
also less invasive as a surgery. That was one of the big
Yeah.
reasons for me, so I could heal
Did you
quicker.
have skin saving as well? Did they save your skin?
Yeah, so my breasts look exactly the same on the outside, except for the two scars under here.
Yeah.
There's the term of bottoming out, after you've finished breastfeeding, which basically means that your breast, your sweet 16 breasts that were here, then become a little bit lower, a little bit flatter, a little bit closer to the ground. And
So
so apparently,
that's what I ended up with after. So I had a single
mm,
mastectomy.
mm,
So I had this whole new bright shiny new boob,
right,
but then
yeah.
my sort of 39-year-old one that has fed 3 kids was down here
Yeah.
looking like a real
Going,
sad sack.
oh, right, mate.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, thanks for showing me up. And
Oh
I had
God.
to put a real fight in to get the other one sort of
Did
adjusted so
you?
that
Yeah, and
I
that's the thing, because
looked.
yeah, but it's so, I think it's so important that they offer it you at the same time, because really, in all honesty, it's no skin off their nose, really, and actually, it's a massive thing psychologically for you.
Totally agree. And the problem is, it's an absolute postcode lottery, that some places offer it to you and others do everything they can to discourage you not to do it. And it's so hard, you know, you're in the eye of the storm with everything that's going on, and they're, you know, offering you all these different kind of reconstructions, or telling you you can't have a reconstruction. Your head's just going crazy. And normally I feel like I can sort of take control quite well of my situation, and you know, ask for stuff that I want. I was just like, yeah, just whatever you think, I'll just go with it.
It's a lot. It's so
it is a
overwhelming.
lot. It is.
And you're making life-changing, potentially saving decisions, and it's all on you, and it's a lot. It's like, and you're constantly thinking, if I do this, these are my chances, and therefore it's less pain, suffering, upset for my family, my friends. You're constantly thinking of your whole world. It's not just you and your outcome.
No, exactly.
And it's a lot, and you don't get all that much time if you're in a situation where you need to get it done, you know, because it's your life.
No, definitely not. When I had mine, I was told that I was having my surgery the following week. And of course, in that first week, you know, I was just, you know, I was going from scan to another, you know, to other scans, to, you know, so it was just sort of this roller coaster of.
How did you find yours? What was your?
Mine was a lump, same as you. Just found it one morning, and I knew it hadn't been there that long, because I've always been quite body aware. Just because the line of work that I'm in, because we often have guests come on our show that are talking about cancer of some sort. And that day I found it in the morning at like 5 in the morning when I was getting ready for work, and I got into the show. I work on the Lorraine show, and we had Bow Babe on our show. And so I don't know if you know who Bow Babe is, but you've heard of her. So amazing woman who's going through stage 4 bowel cancer, and we interviewed her on the show. And I just remember she just said, you know, if anybody's, you know, whether it's your bum or your arms or your face, or, you know, if you've got anything unusual, get it checked out. And I thought, all right, I really need to call a GP. So I did, you know, and it just really prompted me. And then on the day that I was going to get the results from my biopsy, we had Sally Dinover on the show, who was about to climb Mount Everest. Or no, she was going to Everest base camp.
With Prevent.
With Prevent. And I was sat there watching her. I was sat in our gallery, and I thought, oh my God, this is such a sign that I'm about to go and get my results. But what she's telling me is, if it is cancer, you know, you can get through it, and
absolutely,
maybe I would then be climbing a mountain or something afterwards, which I did end up doing, weirdly. But funny how those things come about. But the other thing I wanted to ask you was, do you so if you've had your mastectomy, do you have to go on tamoxifen or anything?
Well,
or tamoxibolics, which lots of us call it.
Tamoxiballs. So I am at this point making a decision about two things. I have two options. Like I said, I had my meeting with my oncologist on Wednesday, and the options are either tamoxifen, 5 years, tablet a day, woohoo for the side effects, or tamoxifen and another drug, I never pronounce this correctly, but I'm going to try, goserelin, I think it's called.
Oh, right.
And essentially it's an injection, subcutaneous, so it's into the fatty tissue once a month, and it's to turn off my ovaries, because it's estrogen receptive, and it will obviously stop my body from producing estrogen, and that's what the cancer is. It's cancer's bestie, so I have to make a decision.
That was the same as mine. So how do you feel about that? I find, you know, and so I'm on tamoxifen, and my problem is my body's still producing too much estrogen, so they want to take my ovaries, and I when I was on chemo, I got pushed into the menopause, and I found it horrific. I found the side effects of it just too much to bear, and I am now like, I don't know, my head's a bit in the sand, that I'm just like, I just don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back there, because I didn't recognise myself. And I know that lots of people say that they can't, the symptoms calm down, but what if they don't, and my ovaries are gone, and I can't, I can't then reverse it, or I can do the injections.
Well, I was just going to say, what about the drug then? Because that lasts for as long as it's in your body, as opposed to forever. And so, that's my option, because we've thought about it, and obviously you can't, it's very dangerous to get pregnant on the tamoxifen anyway, as you'll know, and then it's actually dangerous for the for you to with the Coronation, which I think it's Coronation, and so children, unfortunately, have to that has to be the end of it, which we've been talking about, and there's discussions, there's means and ways.
Hard.
Well, we're just trying to work things out at the moment, and I'm trying to be as open and honest about everything as I can. But this is the hard bit, because it's the bit that I've actually been quite sure about everything up until now, if I'm honest. Making this decision about these two drugs, because it's going to affect us as a family. It's going to affect the way I am with Theo, how able-bodied I'll be, because I know that it does push you into the menopause, even with but they say it's like a temporary situation almost with the drugs, because then it can reverse once you've finished the drugs.
So
it turns your ovaries off, unless I have completely, because I'm still reading all of the trillion leaflets and sites and everything, but it turns them off, and it's not like having them removed. So for me, I have a million questions. So I'm kind of going back, okay, so are you saying that it turns them off for this period of time, and then how long after is it affecting them? Like with the tamoxifen, they say you have it, and then after a certain period of time, wait before you get pregnant, make sure it's all out of your system for your body to return to normal. So again, with this drug, some of my questions are, okay, well, because I'm 40 now, for instance, if I take this drug and it turns it turns them off essentially to make sure that it's not producing the estrogen, then what happens? Like how long after? And the side effects, as you say, are horrendous. And it's kind of like a middle point, this drug, between the tamoxifen and the chemotherapy. So it's like a midway point. And they're telling me that they think that this is the best option, but it's a choice. So the tamoxifen's a definite, and then the Girls is a
so regardless, you will go on tamoxifen. But I actually found I struggled the first 6 months with tamoxifen, and then I feel like my body just started getting used to it, and I cope with it much better. I'd say after about 3 or 4 months, actually, I kind of got into a groove. What would you say were the worst side effects? My worst side effects, and actually it's difficult to know what was the chemo working itself out of my body and what was the tamoxifen, because I was having it at the same time. But what I noticed was fatigue levels were insane, like really bad, and dryness, like everywhere. Like it was so bad that it hurt me to sit down. Like I was uncomfortable sitting down. Thankfully that's gone. That's completely
I just
gone.
saw a load of the hearts come up then. I think everyone's going, yes, the dryness.
Yeah. And then the other huge thing are the hot flushes, which I always thought, oh, for God's sake, a hot flush, like how bad can it be? Oh my God, it can be absolutely debilitating. But I've been having acupuncture for it, and I'm just sort of paying just privately. There's a place on my high street that I go to. Oh my God, it works so well for me. I for some reason respond really well to it. So
that's amazing.
And so I would say that that was the main thing. My moods weren't or aren't brilliant, but I don't know if that's just me being a bit of a miserable cow sometimes.
It might just be me.
That literally might just be me. So it's so hard that, you know, just all these decisions and choices, and part of me just wants somebody to, I want my mum to be here to say, you need to do this, this and this, and it's all going to be fine, you know. But everybody's story is so different, everybody's diagnosis is so different, everybody's you know, advice that they get given is so different. So it's a lot of it, you've got to sort of find your own way through it, haven't you?
Such a unique situation for each person.
One of my really good friends who I met thanks to the both of us having breast cancer, she was in her 20s when she had it, and she came off she was hormone receptive, she came off the medication so that she could have a baby, and she gave birth a year ago.
Oh my god.
Yeah, now she's back on. And that and what's the other one? I think it was Zoladex was the other thing that she was on.
Was that a hormone therapy or a chemotherapy?
It was like something to go with the tamoxifen, I guess, like this thing that you're talking about, to switch off your ovaries. And she had her baby, and now she's gone back on there, and I just I love hearing such great positive stories like
that's
that.
What we need. My gosh,
it is and there's so many great positive stories out there. But it's just important, isn't it, that we keep sharing these things, because especially for the, you know, the when, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding and you I don't know, when is the lump one that you need to get checked out? One thing I do know is your GP isn't going to be cheesed off with you for going in, you know, just to get it checked.
That's a massive thing. And honestly, that's not just about breast cancer or even cancer. It's just across the board. Like, I've actually heard people say, oh, I just don't want to bother them.
I know.
Please bother them.
I know.
Like,
you've just got to.
You could be saving your life. You could be saving your own life. And I just wish that we, you know, it isn't, because it can be scary, and God knows, I mean, COVID has put the fear of God in everybody for lots of reasons. But on top of that, no one wants to go to hospitals, wants to go to the GP even. It's been a really scary time for a lot of people. And so I kind of feel like, I don't know, I understand it to an extent, but I guess now that we're kind of coming out the back end of it, I hope that now people really take a bit of a turn for the better and are able to feel confident enough to go and get things checked out, because it's a flip thing as well. It's not just about going, getting it checked, hearing bad news and then trying to work from it. It might be good news. It might put your mind to rest. It might be that it's nothing. You know, you could go and say, say use breast cancer as an example. You could go, it turns out it's just a benign lump and it's nothing, and you're fine. Imagine that peace of mind. So it's not always to go and find out.
And also with that, you then know what your normal is. Exactly. Because then if something else, you know, crops
you have
up,
a benchmark.
You've got a benchmark. I've just seen Tracked Girl 71 on here says that Gosrelin is Zoladex, so it is. Okay. I wonder if it's like a brand name or something, or just another name.
Gosrelin, is that what it is? I keep saying Gosrelin. Yeah. Thank you for correcting me, because honestly, there's so much information. If anybody's on there and knows about the Gosrelin and whether it does, because obviously it turns off your ovaries, whether they come back to normal when you finish taking it, please DM me and let me know. I'll be reading as much as possible, and eventually when I get my next appointment I'll ask. But it'd be great to know
I know that Hannah, my friend, she was definitely on the Zoladex, and she came off and had a baby.
Really? So, okay, so then it must do. It must do. Could that be an option for you then, instead of having I don't need any more children in my life, because I can't cope with 3 as it is. However, it could,
my fear is the menopause. My fear is the menopause.
Of
I've got
course,
an
because
actual
that's
fear
scary
of
enough as
it.
it is. Never mind doing it because you've also got cancer and you're also trying to stop yourself from that coming back. It's
I just genuinely don't want to go into that hellhole again. I've been there and I'm like traumatized from it.
Yeah.
So I want somebody as well to say to me, look, the statistics are for you, if you have to do these injections into that, you've got X% chance of recurrence. If you don't do that, you've got X. You know, I want somebody to give me the hard, fast facts, but I think they probably just don't know.
You can get a good estimate though. I mean, we've spoken about percentages. So I spoke about percentages with my surgeon as well as with my oncologist, and obviously it is a guesstimation, but it's geared towards your specific case, with your family history, with your type of surgery, with your type of cancer, with all of it. So you can work out percentages. It's a little bit harder in my case just because of how rare the type of cancer I have is, and
the sickle cell situation as well, right?
That's never fun anyway.
No.
But what is really odd, and I wanted to bring this up actually as just a small point, the reason why it's all been a little bit difficult is because it didn't make sense that I had this micrometastases, which is where small amounts, basically is what that means, small amounts of invasive cancer in the lymph glands if I had ductal carcinoma, because ductal carcinoma means that it hasn't spread. So it didn't make any sense that I had them.
Was that then you've got two different types of cancer there?
They said, I'm probably never going to find out exactly how this has happened and why, because that's why they say, you know, even we're looking at these statistics and we're looking at your case and it doesn't quite match up, which is why they're saying, considering it's ductal carcinoma, and considering it's such small amounts, we're talking minimal percentages, like we're in the 90s of my survival rate.
Okay.
I'm in the 90s of my survival rate. So what they're trying to do is get that as high up the 90s as possible. But what they're saying is, because it's such a rare occurrence and circumstance, they're trying to kind of belt and braces the situation. So they're saying, take the tamoxifen, but if you're not having the chemo, which they actually think in my case would be life-threatening rather than life-saving because of my sickle cell and because of the side effects, they're saying go with the goserelin. I've gone to back to the
or the Zoladex.
That one,
the injections.
because it's the middle ground. And so that's where I'm trying to. So part of me is like, I should take this drug because ultimately I should take everything they can give me that will help and not be life-threatening. And part of me is like, I just want to live my life. And although tamoxifan's going to be bad, it's not going to be as bad as taking the other drug as well that will also turn off my ovaries.
I know.
Like, why do I have to make this decision?
And then I say to myself, what if these drugs didn't exist? And then I would be like, can't somebody just create a drug that just like shuts my ovaries off? And you know, it's.
We're very lucky.
We are lucky. You're right. We are so lucky.
In the time that we are, in the country that we are, with the NHS.
Yeah.
The
And if you're triple
negative,
if you're triple negative, there are less options out there. So it's, you know, it's all of those things. Anyway, listen, I don't want to take up any more of a new mum's time, because I know how precious those, like, whenever they're asleep, it's like, oh God, what can I do in this 45-minute window?
I've got time.
I can have a wee, have a wee space.
Oh gosh.
Oh, bless you. But thank you so much for your time, and I massively appreciate it. And
thanks for having me.
I'll be posting this onto my grid and keep it there so that people can watch it back. And if anyone's got any questions or whatever, then just post it in underneath. And I'd love to keep it, you know, in contact and sort of see how you're getting on.
Absolutely.
Further down the line. I'm sure our paths will cross at Telly Towers anyway at some point. I'm sure they do.
But and you know, I've said a million times, like, I feel like it's really important that we talk like this and people hear and people listen.
Absolutely.
To not just our experiences, but how it can and cannot affect themselves. And just go and bother the doctors, please.
Go and bother the doctors.
Check
please.
your once a month, guys, as well. Don't do it too frequently because you could miss the signs.
Yeah.
Once a month.
True.
Once a month.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're a
done.
patron of Prevent
Yes.
Breast Cancer. So I'll post that as
Incredible.
well.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, lovely. Well, thanks, Victoria. Keep in touch and we'll speak to you again.
I will. You take
All
care.
right.
Bye,
Take care.
guys.
Sleep well tonight.
Bye,
Bye.
you too.